Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. Hello, I am Majid Faani, a Muslim. After watching the Innocence of Muslims movie trailer, I thought that it might be helpful to share my humble views with you. Firstly, I praise the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace and mercy be upon him and his progeny, whom devoted 23 years of his life for the sake of mankind to guide them to come out of the darkness of ignorance into the light of the right path. And please allow me to apologize to the Prophet for so much misbehavior from a few so-called Muslims, if that is the cause of this movie making this much bitterness, animosity, and hatred toward the religion and his true followers. There is no doubt that true Muslims will never do wrongdoings. What has been committed, especially in the last decade, by a few in the name of Islam. However, as we are not perfect human beings, we Muslims do so many things which can harm the name and jeopardize the sacrifice of the Holy Prophet in guiding human beings. And we should apologize to the Holy Prophet for that. I sincerely apologize myself here. But in any case, no honest human being will do what has been done by a few, like this movie maker, to misrepresent and disgrace Islam, the religion of peace, and its prophet, Muhammad, the symbol of mercy and kindness. But if they do, let me tell you, it is not something new. Listen to the verse of Holy Quran. يريدون ليطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم والله متم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. Chapter 61, verse 8. They want to extinguish the light of God with their word of mouth. However, God will definitely complete his light despite the will and dismay of non-believers. Also, I fully condemn any killing of non-Muslims as well as Muslims in this regard. We know as Muslims, the Quran teaches us no one is responsible for the wrong action of another wrongdoer when he has nothing to do with it. It is in chapter 6, verse 164. وَلَا تَذِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No one will be considered and take the burden of responsibility for another person's sins or actions. And we know how precious is the life of any human being, as the Holy Book Quran says in verse 32, chapter 5. من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. Whoever kills any innocent person, it is as if he has killed all the human beings. And whoever causes someone to live, save someone's life, he has saved the life of all human beings. So, as Muslims, we fully condemn the killings of all who were attacked and killed innocently because of the wrongdoing of that movie maker. And we express our condolences to their families, the Americans who were killed in American embassy in Benghazi, and also the Muslims who have been killed in their demonstrations against this movie in their home countries. And now I address my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters how to respond about this movie. First of all, the first reaction to this kind of behavior is not to pay attention to them. And we have to say only peace and pass by. It is the teaching of Quran, chapter 25, verses 63 and 72. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. When the believers, they pass by and addressed by ignorant people, their response is only peace be with you. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. When they come across something vain, they pass by nobly. So let us remember a very famous story about the Prophet of Islam. As you know, at the early age of Islam, when the Prophet was passing the streets of Mecca to invite people to Islam, this is a famous story. A lady was throwing garbage over the head of Prophet for so many days. And after some days, the Prophet noticed that this is not being done again. So the Prophet asked about the whereabouts of that person, and the Prophet was told that she has become sick. And the Prophet paid a visit to her, and later on that lady became a Muslim. This is how the Prophet reacted. We can change the crisis into an opportunity, a bad situation into a situation of getting good result. You may have heard that some Muslim brothers and sisters in Britain, they have brought packages of Quran after this incident and distributed to the people who come to their stores and supermarkets to disseminate the message of Islam. So this is how we should react when we see this kind of behavior from some ignorant people. We should simply not pay attention to them. However, if because of the media attention and what we see in the world these days, if we want to object, we have to object peacefully. We have to be very cautious and considerate of the fact that we are trying to defend a prophet who, when he victoriously came back to Mecca, where he was threatened, tortured, and thrown out of his home, he treated his enemies with forgiveness, dignity, and respect. Let's review briefly the early history of Islam. We know that he had started his invitation to Islam in the city of Mecca, his hometown, first covertly by going to the house of friends and relatives, and as soon as he started to openly invite the people of his society to believe in one God and to be pious, his enemies started attacking him. After 5 years of several attacks and torturing of Muslims, the Prophet and his followers left their home, left their city of Mecca, and they took refuge to a desert area called Sheikh Abi Talib. And also some were sent to another area in those days which was called Habasha or Ethiopia. Over 3 years in Sheikh Abi Talib, the Prophet missed his beloved wife Khadija, the very wealthy lady who had donated all of her wealth for the cause of Islam. And they were suffering from lack of food and shelter in the desert. So after 3 years, he came back to Mecca and lived again in Mecca for about another 5 years until the people of Mecca plotted to kill him. Then he and a few believers migrated to Medina, and he sent some of the followers to Habasha, as I said. In Medina, he was welcomed by new believers, and gradually the number of Muslims increased. After a couple of years, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, victoriously came back to his old city, Mecca, some who accompanied him announced that now is the time to take revenge, al-yawm yawmul malhama, from those who had tried to kill him and torturing the Muslims of his followers. But the Prophet announced loudly, al-yawm yawmul marhama, today is the day of mercy and forgiveness. So the Prophet announced that I forgive anyone, everyone, even those who killed us, and including the one who killed my uncle Hamza. This is how we should learn from the Prophet and how we should react. And thirdly, we have to pay attention to a very critical point, which is we should know that these days there are some who try to portray Muslims as a violent, uncivilized people. There might be some who intentionally make this kind of movies because they know how much we love our Holy Prophet and how much it hurts us to see him being insulted. They are after their dirty political gains and goals. Their plan is to present the victims as of the aggressors. There are some who are eager to create another new war in the Middle East and play the role of victims while they are the aggressors. Muslim nations and their leaders, as well as responsible world leaders, should be very, very careful about these plots. Why the action of one individual who made this movie is getting such a harsh response? They demonstrate in the streets and they may attack anyone who is within the same country or same continent of that person. I want to clarify this. I don't want to justify this. Definitely it is wrong, and I can't condemn any attack or even killing of any innocent person for whatever purpose it is. But the point is, the media in the Middle Eastern countries is run by the governments, and governments control the media. So naturally, the people in the Middle East assume that if we see any movie or any news media or any action by the media, it is supported by the government. And the government is behind this. And if the government is not in harmony with this, the government controls and stops this kind of actions in the media. So these people generalize this, and then they assume this movie is made, and many people, the government, the people are in line with it, and so they react so harshly, which I, as I said, fully condemn. No one is responsible for the wrongdoing of another person. Finally, I have to say this: 14 centuries of history of Islam has passed, and after so many animosities from the dawn of Islam, the enemies of Islam, the non-believers were calling the Prophet names. They were calling him lunatic, or the one who is doing sorcery, and so forth. But from that time up to now, 1400 years, Islam has been expanding, and the message of Islam is spread around the world, and the number of Muslims is increasing. You can go and check credible statistics about this, and you see that there are more and more Muslim converts in Europe, in the United States, and many parts of the world. And isn't that an indication of the verse which I recited at the beginning? يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. They want to extinguish the light of Allah, but Allah will enlighten His light and finish the job. Even the non-believers do not like it. And peace be upon the followers of the right path.